Our next speaker is Stephanie Schroeder, Dr. Stephanie Schroeder, who, well, I'll let her talk about herself.
Thanks, Mike. It's actually Dr. Schroeder. All right, so you've all heard about this amazing research that's going on today, but how do you get involved? How do you start? And so what I'm going to talk about today is what's an REU and why should you do one when you're in college? But before that, I want to talk a little bit about myself. I am born and raised from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Even though I grew up in the Midwest, I wanted to be a marine biologist. But that said, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee for my undergrad because I needed to save money. And I thought, maybe I'll try aquatic freshwater biology. I received my bachelor's of science with a biology major and a chemistry minor. And I did research while I was an undergrad. There was one day, middle of January, I was on Lake Michigan doing research, and our research vessel had to break through the ice to move forward on the water. And at that point, I thought, no, I still wanted to do marine biology. I don't like phosphate that much. So I ended up, after graduating, heading out to California, where I was a research assistant for 2 years at the Bodega Marine Lab, which is part of UC Davis. I was hooked. Marine biology was awesome. I studied a type of invasive alga, which is the singular of algae. But I still wasn't ready for graduate school, so I joined the Peace Corps. I went to Guatemala for 2 years and worked with local indigenous women's groups doing organic farming. At that point, I loved it. It was amazing, but I also recognized that international nonprofit work is really hard. And I was ready for graduate school at that point. I then went to the University of Oregon for marine biology. I studied a type of snail, a marine snail called a limpet, and my specific marine snail was territorial, so it would defend the space where it lived, which wasn't very big because it's a snail. And it also changed sex. So fascinating work, loved it. How to use stop motion camera to actually study the snails because they move really slow, but they fight very ferociously, but very slow. So I would have to speed up videos over time. As much as I love the research, as much as I loved marine ecology and being out in the fields, I realized that my true passion was getting people excited about science. And I really wanted to make STEM and research equitable to all. So after graduate school, I then switched from marine ecology to STEM education. Since then, I've held positions as education director of a research center and the Education Outreach and Diversity Managing Director, all at the University of Southern California. I'm currently the ATP-Bio program manager here at the University of Minnesota. And you heard a little bit about our center where we use cryopreservation to stop biological time. What I do in my positions is create programs to basically create more equitable research opportunities for students, for graduate students, and really making sure that we are inclusive and that everyone can have an opportunity to do research. So, and a lot of this involves running an REU. So what's an REU? It is a research experience for undergraduates. It is funded by the National Science Foundation, also known as the NSF. So not all research experiences are REUs, but the REU program is the most recognized across the country. There are REUs for every field of science, and last time I checked, there are over 700 programs at institutions across the country. So during an REU, you are fully funded, or you better be. If you aren't, don't do that program. I'm telling you now, make sure you're paid. So your travel, your lodging, and a stipend should all be part of the program. There are lots of programs that have different requirements. So if you are, early career in college, or if you're at a community college, you can find programs that cater to that they really want students who are early along in their career path and don't have any experience. Oh, okay. So what do you actually do during an RU? So most programs are 6 to 10 weeks. At the beginning of the program, you will work daily with a mentor. They will teach you the process of science and how to, do different techniques, and it should be really hands-on. So you're learning how to do it, and you're learning all about research culture. By the end of the program, you will be pretty independent. You will be figuring out questions that you want to ask. You may not, it's a 10-week program. You're not going to figure out the cure for cancer, but if you do, that's amazing. But usually that doesn't happen. So you learn that science is a amazing but finicky beast, and that it's a long process, but ultimately rewarding. There are usually other opportunities and activities included in the program. So you will have professional development seminars about how to create a scientific poster. And there are also social activities to make sure that students are relating to, there's usually 8 to 10 students total in a program. So you want to make sure that you're creating a cohort. So when I was at the University of Southern California, I took my students to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So you can see the picture up above, which is part of NASA, and they are the NASA institution in charge of the Mars rover. So during some of my RU programs, it was, they had just launched it, so it was very exciting. I also took my students to Catalina Islands, where the USC Wrigley Institute is. So I would take students kayaking and snorkeling and making sure that we got them outside the lab. So how do you actually apply to an REU? You want to plan ahead. Most applications open in December, and the deadline is in February. If you just Google NSF REU, it should take you right to the page, the NSF REU page. And you can look at specific programs and specific schools to see all that's out there. And there is a lot out there. The application usually consists of a personal statement, so they'll want to know about you and why you want to do research and what your career goals are. You'll probably need a couple of letters of recommendation, so make sure that you ask the recommender with plenty of time. Don't do it the week before it's due, because I can guarantee that other students are asking them. So make sure you give ample time to write that letter. They probably also will ask for an unofficial transcript. That said, they usually have a GPA requirement. Even if you don't meet it, apply. I know that within my program, we took a really holistic approach. So we wanted to make sure that we were taking students who maybe they wouldn't necessarily have an opportunity, but we knew that this was a lifetime, change in a lifetime experience. And, anecdotally, I have students who had a very low GPA and are now in graduate school getting their PhD in bioinformatics. So who can apply? Because it's a National Science Foundation and a federal program, it only U.S. citizens or permanent residents can apply. That said, if you are a DACA student, email the program manager. A lot of times, the program coordinator can find outside funding to fund students who don't qualify for the REU. I know that within my program, I funded a handful of amazing students who were undocumented, and we made sure that we could fund them, so they had this opportunity. So why should you apply? It's really good for figuring out if you like research. A 10-week program where you learn that maybe you don't like research, or maybe you don't like this type of research, is way better than figuring out in year 3 of a 6-year PhD program. And also, it's really good for applying for graduate school. Graduate school is really competitive, and if you demonstrate that you have had lots of research opportunities, that you understand how science works, it bodes well for your application. You can also pick wherever you want to go. So if there's a part of the country that you want to explore, this is a great chance to go live there for 10 weeks. So how do you have an effective application? You want to be honest about your experience. If you don't have a lot of extracurriculars because you're working full-time and taking care of family members, put that in your statement. It shows that you're responsible, that you have time management skills, and if you had low grades because you were working full-time or had an extenuating circumstance, explain it. This is the opportunity to say, I really want to do this. These are the barriers these are the barriers I've had to overcome. And that said, make sure you answer the question being asked. You can verify this by having someone else read it. So have, one of the people who wrote one of your letters of recommendation help you out, and really make sure that you are answering specifically what they want to know. So with that, that was very quick. I will take any questions. Nothing. All right. And just for further clarification, I did a couple research experiences. Neither of them were REUs, but I was at the Smithsonian, where I learned that I don't like lab work. But it was amazing. It was an amazing opportunity. And then I had another research experience out in Friday Harbor off the coast of Washington, where I learned I loved being out in the field. So.
Can you get more than one REU?
Yes. So usually, I would say students often get a couple, because like I said, some programs want someone who is at the early stages of their career, and then once you have one under your belt, then you can apply towards the ones that want someone with a little bit more research experience.
What's the stipend usually?
It was, I think, $5,000 total, but I know that it's been increasing because programs have acknowledged that we really want to make sure that students don't have to choose between working full-time to make money and then having this opportunity. We want to make sure that we're creating an equitable opportunity. So maybe $6,000 to $7,000 now. Yes.
What has been your favorite REU that you've led or gone with students on?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So the question was, what has been my favorite REU that I've led with students? I would say, so it was not an REU because we weren't funded yet. So I did some pilot programs it was a non-residential program, but we were working with community colleges in the LA area. And so it was my first time running a program, working with students. And so it was the first time we went to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and out to Catalina Island. And I know the students learned some stuff. I hope they did. I know I learned so much about how to really create an effective program and what students, brought to the table and what we could help them with.